Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's Destiny Movie Night Hangout. So just before we begin, I wanted to inform you that, as probably you know, this is a live hangout and we're going to have a discussion for about 20 minutes, and we are also open for your questions during this session. So feel free to use the Google Hangout question box to send your comments or questions, and then we will address them during our conversation. So the movie we're talking about tonight is called Still Alice. And before we jump into our topic, I want to introduce you to our guests. And we have Michelle, who is based in Vienna. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Joanna.
Hello. And we have Marlene, who is based in Mexico.
Hi, guys, and glad to be here.
Glad that you are with us. And my name is Joanna, and I am based in the UK. So, as I was mentioning, so we're going to talk about this movie, Still Alice. And for those who haven't watched it's about Alice, who is a 50-year-old lady, very successful in her career, has a adoring family, and actually in the beginning, she's celebrating her 5th anniversary. And she's the most intelligent and beautiful woman that her husband actually thinks of her. And so it starts from this positive experience of her life as I said, a successful woman, professional career, financially stable. She's actually linguistics professor at university, and everything is very organized. And then eventually she starts noticing things changing in her life, and she actually gets lost in one of her runnings and starts forgetting things in her life. So she goes to the neurologist, and she is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and a genetic, like a very rare type of Alzheimer's. And from that moment on, her life changes. And she tries at the beginning to pretend and try to play tricks on her, like to hide the fact that she couldn't remember certain things and kind of test herself. But eventually it becomes very noticeable, and she has to communicate that with her family. So the majority of the film is then about her facing this process of losing who she was until now in her career, and curiously enough, the fact that she starts losing and stop remembering words, which was exactly what her reality was constructed upon. So she was a professor, and so all this movie is going to be about that process and the relationship with the family. So what we're going to do today with our panelists is we're going to bring these points onto ourselves, and we're going to place ourselves in Alice's shoes and try to understand what is going on when we define ourselves by our own identity as who we have been living this far, and not only that, but also the relationship with the family. So, as I said, we have a Q&A session as well during the Hangout. So if you have any questions about the movie, feel free to send it, or anything related to this disease, because we're going to talk about examples that we have, we know, and also we're going to support people on how to deal with that. And we are all doing the Desteni I course, so the Desteni I process, which is an online course, and we're going to provide insight from that perspective. All right, ladies, enough talking about the movie, and I want to have your perspectives. So tell me, what was the main takeaway from this movie to your own process, and why?
Can I go first?
So, go for it, Michelle.
Okay, one of the main takeaway I want to say was more like, for me, like leaving an imprint, or like putting something of myself in the world that still lasts. So in that regard, I mean, like, sharing or writing or having like something on the internet from me that can benefit others, like sharing like realizations or life lessons, so that way people can actually learn from me and like learn and they can improve their lives. So like, because when we die, that's it. And I think it's really important for us to leave something on the earth for people to that can help people. We can leave something that can help people to improve their lives.
Like a legacy.
Yes, exactly, a legacy. Yes.
Cool. Marlon, what was the main point from the movie that resonated with your own life?
Well, she's like a person that has identified herself very much with her profession. She's been a linguist and she's gotten to the high strata of academics. And so kind of, first of all, going with her or walking with her, that process of having to realize that she's going to lose her memories and eventually lose that position that she has in university. One has to also kind of, one goes from feeling sorry for her to then realizing, okay, this is something that we really need to, there is echoing happening. I don't know why. I don't hear the echo, but Valentin is saying. Maybe you can check your own, Valentin. Maybe you have two links open. That's a suggestion. So if anyone else is listening echoing, just let us know, and then we will check on our side, but if not, check on your side. So this level of being able to let go of oneself, and that's like the hard point that I could also resonate a lot with in relation to, even in my short period of time that I had lived up to this point where process opened up in my life, I had carefully crafted my personalities and carefully stored specific knowledge to become the individual that I wanted to be. So when realizing that I was building that essentially for my own ego, I said, that is really not what I want to be. That is something that that I have to let go of. But this process was really like killing a version of myself. So in a way, I can relate to, that process that she goes through in order to realize, okay, these memories are not going to last, and starting to prepare herself for that. And so kind of choosing, what can I still take with me, or how can I preserve some level of functionality, which in the case of Alzheimer's is something that I see was quite clever of her to do. But at the same time, we will later on discuss more on the little things that she did for herself to remind herself what to do in specific situations. But it was mostly, to me, like that ability to let go of oneself and the struggle that comes with it, and realizing this me that the people recognize me for being won't come back, and going through that deterioration of the mind, which is very hard. And sometimes you would be sad for her, but that's where our process comes in and we say, well, we cannot be sad for someone. How can I assist someone that is going through that, and to let them know we can live in the moment.
Thank you, Marlon. In my case, I felt two things. Well, I recognized within me. First, there was this idea, well, if I was in her situation, how would I dealt with it? But also, it was this, I have so many plans in my life and so many things that, as she had, like social life and things like that, and then suddenly she has no longer control, and then it's at the same time her reality did not adjust immediately to that. So it felt, and sometimes I do that in my own life. It's like, even if I'm sick, for example, I try to still go out or to still do things instead of actually recognizing, wait a second, I must adjust. I must be gentle with myself and recognize something is going on. So I have to be patient and deal with that instead of trying to pretend that everything is the same as it was before. So that was something interesting, and I was really impressed. In a way, I really enjoyed the relationship she had with her youngest daughter, who kind of showed herself to be that kind of person, much more flexible and actually accepting the fact that things can go not as planned. And curiously enough as well, it was the daughter that in the beginning of the movie, as a mother, Alice was saying to her, why don't you have a career in a certain path? Why don't you go to something better or more like recognized than being an actress, which is what she was going to become. So it's interesting to see how these roles that I have also established within me in my before my process, and that I've been dealing with them, which is this whole idea of images and things that we want to project to the outside when in fact we are just creating a mess inside our own selves. So that was the point that I noticed.
Would you guys consider that there was like a stubbornness on her side to kind of stick to her knowledge and stick to herself no matter what?
Yeah. I saw that the point of breakdown, like when she kind of had to let go, was when she was doing that speech at the center. In that moment, she kind of recognized that it was a fight that she would not win. And it was best to embrace this and to see what she could take out of it. What do you think, Michelle?
Yep, I saw that too, and also I saw the stubbornness in her interactions with Lydia, her daughter, where she was so determined her daughter would to go to college, but she didn't even really consider her daughter, and that her daughter, you know, she made a decision, and she was, so the mother was quite stubborn and didn't want to let the daughter do what she wants to do, and then in the end, I mean, she completely forgot. The mother, you know, she completely forgot about everything. So it's not like that mattered anymore because the daughter was still there. The daughter can still do what she wants to do.
Yeah, like in the end, all of those like points that we want to like, yeah, the stubbornness. It's all about superficial points. It's not actually things that will have any impact in people's lives whatsoever. It may affect them, but it's not going to support them. Right, so we saw that, Valentin, your audio is fixed. Glad, and feel free to send us your questions during the Hangout. So another point that this movie shows is our relationship to memory and how we are defined by what we think about ourselves, by what we remember, by our past. So what is your perspective, and how have you been dealing with with this relationship? Especially, well, now in this movie it's taken to the extreme, but also in your process as how to deal with this attachment to memories that in the end hold us back and doesn't allow us to actually leave what is here.
There was a very interesting video that Sunette actually made just recently on how to stand in change, even if everyone else around you maybe remembers you for any other pattern that you used to be in. And so I would encourage everyone to listen to that one, and we can place maybe the link on it for it. But this is something that where one requires to stick to that letting go of maybe patterns, habits, personalities that one sees are not really supportive or no longer accurate as to the principles that one stands for. Because through walking this process, one does shed a lot of skin, unnecessary skin, in the sense of just things that we no longer see are supportive for our self-development, to become more self-honest and to not be pretentious or to do things just for getting a kick out of it. So making a parallel with this movie, I could see that everything that she had wrought of herself as a person was decided upon her being a linguist. So when she starts losing that, it's almost like she's losing that entirety of who she is. Like she would see herself lost without that knowledge. So from my perspective, I also saw that, well, my knowledge, my personalities linked me to everyone around me. Who would I be without that? So it's really walking through that fear of kind of like the death of oneself. And I would say that this movie emphasizes the relationship with one's family and immediate friends and colleagues, because they are the ones that keep us trapped. Like, hey, you didn't used to be like this, or you used to drink a lot, or hey, you used to be like this angry. Why are you not saying anything? Yeah, that kind of thing, where we simply have to say, yes, that was me in the past. I'm now, testing out life in another manner, and this is me now. And it might shock people initially, but over time, they also walk with you and embrace you as you walk that self-change. So I know that many of us have also walked through that fear of, oh, but I have to behave that other way so that I'm still accepted in this group of friends or people, or that my family still thinks that I still like that. So it does require like a point of courage to say, you know what, I that was the old me. I've kind of outgrown that person. I'm into this stuff. So if you want to talk about that, just give me a call and we can have a chat. But I'm no longer interested in gossiping about people. An example. And so, I mean, in our case, we'll still retain our memory. It is not like we get Alzheimer's, but it is kind of similar in the sense that we shed that aspect of ourselves that we no longer want to keep reenacting on. So you mentioned on becoming characters, and that would be one of it, to stop being a character that we see is no longer supportive. And we will also get on with how can we assist other people that have Alzheimer's in this regard later on.
Thanks, Marlon. Yeah, absolutely. And in the movie, Alice, and sorry, Michelle, I wanted to hear your feedback, but just building on what Marlon says, is like when there's a disease and there's something that actually you can't do anything about it, there's no choice. It's much harder because suddenly you're obliged to change. But in the process that we're walking, it is a point of self-direction. And that is even perhaps twice more harder, because then it's your decision and you have to remind yourself every moment, why am I doing this, and why am I not accepting certain thoughts and behaviors for me, for my own self. And I find that as a really interesting reference point, because sometimes in our society we just take, well, first we take things for granted, but also we want everything done for us, when in fact in this moment, like in this point of change, it has to come from a self-directive point, starting point. Otherwise, what I noticed in the movie was this resistance for her to accept what was going on within her. So, Michelle, in regards to the memory point, would you like to share any experience that you had? You were telling me before that you had someone in your family that also went through Alzheimer's disease. Was the memory or anything related to that you could share?
Sorry, your connection kind of went out a little bit. Do you mean if I have any personal experience with Alzheimer's?
No, like in your reality, in your family.
Yes.
If it's related to the memory point, or if you want to share anything related to your own experience by seeing someone close to you losing that ability.
Yes, my grandmother from my dad's side of the family, my dad's mom, had Alzheimer's, and I never really knew much of what Alzheimer's was. So I didn't really know very much about it, except that one loses their memory. So I only saw her about 3 times when she had this illness, and I don't remember very much about it, except she was quiet and she'd ask a lot of questions. But my grandfather was always by her side, which I thought was really cool and supportive. I mean, he was always there, and even though he was also very old and not very capable of moving around a lot, he was like her #1 support person, and I really admired that. And I think that if my partner were to be or have Alzheimer's, I would also want to be there for him. And I really just see my grandfather being there as her support was really great. But unfortunately, I mean, I never really spent time with my grandmother to really see how much the Alzheimer's really took effect, because we lived in different states. I only saw her briefly 3 times. But I know it does bring a lot of stress with my parents, and it can be I don't have a parent that's experiencing it, but I know it can probably be very stressful. So.
All right. And you, Marlon, because you know someone that has Alzheimer, and what is this memory point? What is this attachment, and how to deal with that? Would you say would be the best way?
Yeah, briefly, she's an older woman. She's from the US, and she's an African American, which means throughout her childhood she had been underprivileged. She had been impoverished for most of her life, up to the point where she was able to empower herself, become a teacher, and earn a lot of good money. So upon seeing her after many years and realizing that she has developed Alzheimer's, I kind of was able to see and test out for myself how to relate to a person that does not even recognize me, even if she met me when I was 6 years old. And so kind of see what comes up within her in the moment. And I realized that what comes up the most is memories that she had attached a lot of energy as emotions to it, which means traumatic experiences of her childhood, of having to steal to eat, or how her sisters would have to get her food from the shops, as in robbing, or her mother hitting her, the abuse that she faced with white people, and how she had been kind of inferiorized or made less in certain situations, and how she stood up for that. So she's constantly reminding these aspects of her life. And so I noticed that a lot of anger would come up in her. And so in that moment I realized, well, even if she won't remember the support that I can give to her, I can, in this moment, be with her and assist her to walk through and understand why these things happened. So we eventually walked through, for example, the relationship with her mother, and how she didn't have a mother herself. So her parents didn't really know how to be parents, but they were also very poor. So there was a lot of conflict, domestic violence, and all of that. So in that moment, I just shared about forgiveness, like learning how to forgive them, forgive yourself, because it is you, through these memories, that you continue feeling like very disempowered and very angry and frustrated. So in that moment, she was able to realize, hey, I can actually be here, and I do not require to be reminding all of this. It was momentarily, but yeah, maybe the next day she came up with other memories, also of the sort of being traumatic experiences. So I realized that in my mind, as a process person, you kind of want that kind of learning process to stick with a person. Like, hey, you got to learn about self-forgiveness, but the next day she could not remember anything of it. So it was like a really unconditional process of, I'm just going to share the same thing to you once again, and in the moment assist you, and maybe have a good time of remembering, but not from sorrow and regret and grudges and hatred, but simply learning to process it and let go, and maybe have fun about other things, and understanding the reasons and the choices that she made in her life based on that traumatic past. So this also enabled me to see that we, as people that maybe have friends with Alzheimer or family, to learn how to live with them in the moment. And it is very supportive for us to not see them as this collection of memories or accomplishments or anything like that, but saying, hey, what can I do with you? Maybe sing, dance, play some music, tell what their favorite food is. I mean, I had these conversations with her, and she would go and drift with memories. And so whenever I would notice that she was still wanting to hold on to this anger and grudges, I would once again bring her back to this forgiveness point. And so it becomes like a cycling process, but it is a supportive one for her. And she was very grateful that we are doing this as well, because I told her all about Desteni. And so it is very supportive to have this stance, I would say, and I would recommend it to everyone that deals with people with Alzheimer's.
Very cool, Marlon. Thanks for sharing. And you too, Michelle. So here are the memories. If on one side, for example, in the movies, Still Alice, it was almost as she was feeling like desperate for having, because she wanted her memories back. But at the same time, memories can be like ghosts. that kind of like always on like behind you, and you feel bad because you can't remember things, but at the same time we are not perhaps educated to see life as this creation process. And okay, you don't have a memory, that's fine, you can start from now. What do you want to do now? Who do you want to become? And let go of that is almost like starting again, which is what we do in our process, but not with any disease. It's simply starting fresh. Okay, let's have a look at what I've done, what the thoughts are, and now how can we change from now? Who do we want to become? And as you were saying about the memories, we, at this point, I mean, it was something that I also recognized in the movie, which is how I can use the memories to know about me and then prevent from those memories to become traumas and then haunt me in the future in a way. Let me just have a look if we have any questions. Yes, we do. All right, so just before we move on, I'm just going to take a question from Andrea. So Andrea sends a question. Let me select. Right, so Andrea says, for me, I was going through lots of fear while watching it, as I watched my mother die from Alzheimer's, so I was saying self-forgiveness for all the fear that I have of going that way myself. It is a strange thing to witness with very odd behavior. Right. Ladies, you want to comment?
I also had similar fears because of my grandmother, how she also had Alzheimer's, so I went into some fears about that, wondering if I might get it because it's familiar, you know, it's from the family. So what I also did was research. I actually looked up Alzheimer's and if it's possible for me to get it. And because she's my grandmother, I mean, it's not so much like I have a big chance, but I might have a chance, but it's not like serious. So I just did some research in that regard because I wanted to find out if it's something I should be concerned about. But then I also went on EQAFE, and then I listened to the recording on that about Alzheimer's to see what the mind-physical contribution is to that disease. So that was really cool perspective too, to see how that actually manifests in someone.
I would definitely recommend in that case, and I don't know, Michelle, if you've in any way changed the way that you maybe, as you were mentioning at the beginning, like writing out stuff that you want to leave for posterity or things like that. Because I don't have such situation in my family, for example, but I can definitely see that if I had such direct relationship to it, some fears could come up. But in the end, then comes this application of, okay, then I would have to completely embrace who I am going to be in every moment, and so play safe by saying I'm going to integrate living principles where I ensure that I do no harm, no abuse, where I take responsibility and place these kind of reminders of myself of these basic principles. Remember self-honesty, remember to breathe. And, you know, use gadgets. Like she uses her iPhone, for example, so that's a cool way. And also to let our families know of reminding ourselves of these kind of principles of this process. I would say that that is something very supportive, and that in the end, what we're walking here is also to be present in the moment. We don't need to carry all the baggage of everything that we've been. I agree that there are odd behaviors, because I also saw it with this person that I was talking about. But it's something that one has to also let go of in terms of expecting the person to act in a particular way. It can be a little bit disturbing at times, but it is something that one also has to kind of be flexible and let go and rather embrace them as well as they are.
Yeah, but definitely, Andrea, self-forgiveness, as you know, of course, it's great. And I actually, on this movie, I didn't do self-forgiveness out loud while I was watching, but that happened in other movies that resonated more with my own fears. So that is a very great, it's a great, like the best support we can give for ourselves, absolutely. Right, we also have a question from Valentin. So Valentin says, in one of the scenes, the daughter of Alice emotionally reacted when she found out that Alice read her private journal. How do secrets influence our lives, and why it is recommended to write your journal publicly? Any takers?
Okay, well, I'll take that. This was a very interesting thing because I could relate a lot to it in relation to how I would see that my mother would read my sister's journals and she would find out everything. But you have to see that in the end we hide things because we don't want to create further consequences. And if you look at that, it's based on them not having an open conversation about her career and the mother being reactive to how she wanted to be an actress and all of these things. And yes, there are private things that we would not maybe want others to fully read on. But what is quite funny in this situation is that she could not remember what she had read. So if we could simply kind of apply that to ourselves at the same time, to say, yeah, okay, I read it, but I don't take anything personal, and it is just information. And even if it can become like a supportive thing that you can open up with people that reads our blogs and so forth, then it becomes like a sharing of similar patterns that are no strange to any other mind in this world. So that's why, for example, in Desteni, it's also encouraged to share yourself on that perspective, because then you know that there are many people going through the same thing and it is no special. I mean, that's something that at the very beginning of sharing in the forums and stuff like that, it was like amazing to me. Wow, this person goes through the same fears and judgments and perspectives, and like we don't make that obvious of ourselves. We always are very enclosed and secretive about it. So if there's something that I've also kind of acknowledged is that throughout this process and eventually, you know, becoming one and equal to everything, nothing will be hidden. We will know everything of everyone. So instead of living with fears and secrets and stuff like that, we'd rather walk the process of seeing, why am I hiding this? Why am I preventing this to be known by others? And get comfortable with that sharing aspect. Because then it's a better way than having to be hiding. I lived with secrets for a long time in my life, and it got me to be very anxious, very nervous about things. So I do not recommend that. I rather suggest establishing communication and being self-responsible, because whatever you fear others judging you for or whatever, rather one learns from it. If it's a mistake, one learns from it, one takes self-responsibility, one walks the process of correction. But it is not about them in the end, it's about oneself.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, I think especially... Oh,
Go ahead.
I think especially with secrets, in most cases they do come out somehow, and so it's best for one to really work on what are the secrets, because it really could come out in the physical and there could be consequences. So if it is going to be shown publicly, best for that person to write out the solution as well, not just kind of put the secret out there without any correction made.
Cool. Yeah, I would also very quick add to that, for example, many people misunderstand honesty and self-honesty. Honesty is just like exposing yourself with whatever rubbish goes on in our minds and just sharing it and believing that that's just me and that's who I am. No, that's the mind. That's the thing that we have to process and actually maybe write it for yourself and keep it to you, and then come and share how you walk through all of these exposure with no self-responsibility, to then sharing self-honesty, which is recognizing, yes, this was my mind rubbish, yes, this was a secret of mine, it is no longer as such because I've realized this and that point of self-responsibility, and I am willing to stand by it and correct it within myself. Then that is the real self-honesty. Like, I know that it was a fuck-up of mine, and now I'm willing to take it on and confront it and walk it. So that is also a pointer, because sometimes we believe that then we have to expose ourselves and expose our secrets. No, I mean, who will benefit from that in the end? So sharing is about benefiting others from what one has walked within one's process.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that secrets in itself, they have a lot of energy associated to that, because we hold ourselves, we define ourselves as secret, as any other personality. So from my experience, sometimes just speaking with another about it takes away that energy that I had. So it's no longer a secret, it's just information. It's just something that I'm holding on to, and I share with another, and then I address the point, and I usually give it a name, because then you know, okay, this is what I was feeling, either it's fear or anything else, and that then, yeah, as Marlon is saying, then it's helpful to then share that process where you recognize that within yourself. And the other thing I was going to say is, Marlon, you were talking about the mind point in terms of this is all these back chats that are running in our head. And in this movie, for example, or at least I was reading also somewhere that she's facing herself with her old mind and her new mind. But at the same time, I noticed that what we see in her, a lot of the information that she had is lost, so she can't access to that. But because we are so attached to that, we don't do anything with it, with the new space that exists in our minds, that we could do something new from it. So in that case, how do you say, what would you guys say that is this mind of ours that we define ourselves as, and we think that this is who we are? But then when we lose that, we are still alive. I mean, Alice is still a being, she still lives, she still breathes, but in the end she felt that she was dying when she wasn't. So how do you redefine life based on this?
Yeah. This is also what you brought up in terms of the title of the movie, Still Alice, and what Alice is. Is Alice a construct of the mind, as personalities, as achievements, as the linguist, as the mother, etc., or just the person that is flesh and bones and just breathing this life into herself every single moment? So this is a very cool lesson that we can all learn from, regardless of Alzheimer's, and that is to be willing to live in the simplicity of what we are constantly saying as being the breath of life here, and being able to just be the best that you can be in a moment, whether you're alone and with family and so forth. Of course, with Alzheimer's people, having them being alone is not the recommendable thing. So if you are a person that stands with a person with Alzheimer's, is to also embrace that letting go. Like I admired a bit the transition that the daughter and the rebel daughter had to go through, because I kind of placed myself in her shoes, and being able to really embrace like this child kind of with her mother, and no longer see her as the mother, and how she would be like very demanding with her and stuff like that. So all of that is sort of gone because she has no reference to it. And it also opens up a form of gift, I would say, to be able to start anew, as we were mentioning, our relationships to people in the physical. And this is something that, you know, we regularly have chats between each other as support. And it's a recommendable thing to not, whenever you see and confront someone from your past, you don't have to really load all the memories of what they did to you or didn't do. You can just see them physically being here. How are you doing? What's up with you? How are, you know, in the context that you are in? And this is a much more supportive and healthy approach, because you don't really need to define a person by everything that they've been or haven't been for you, because that is what keeps also our history. If we look at the world context of that, our memory, our history is what keeps the grudges going. So if we can instead stand a self-forgiveness, also at an individual and collective level, it would be a much more healthy relationship. Sure, we need memories for practical things, and that is a problem with Alzheimer. We cannot retain that practicality of memories, which we can do in this process. So it is to, as a person that walks with someone with Alzheimer, to embrace that, you know, unpredictability of the moment, of course, with proper care and support and proper support from doctors and all of that, but to be able to let go of wanting the person to be the person that she or he was for you. Yes.
So, Michelle, what is for you then to live in the moment?
What it is for me to live in the moment? Really to just embrace the here, and not to like live according to past memories and who I thought I was. We probably don't know the extent to which we are still living in the past and how our behaviors are because of the past. And it would be so interesting to see what that would be like if we're no longer defined by the past and childhood memories and experiences and being who we want to be. So that's how I see it.
That's a very interesting perspective there that you give, because like even how one acts is because, oh, I have this idea of myself or how I should be, this or that. And it's all like immediate quantum memory that we're just replaying. And as we say very much in this process, we have to kind of stop the past. And this was something very specific also for me, to let go of that haunting past and who I was and what I had done, and just be willing to have that, embrace that innocence of the moment, so to speak. Yes, I work with the points, but at the same time, I give myself that opportunity to open up to possibilities instead of constraining myself to who I believe I should be, for example.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think movies like these kind of reminds us, because there aren't many things in our society that actually put these things into perspective, our lives into perspective. Right, we have a comment from Katie Kraft. I'm going to read it for us. So Katie says that critics of this movie wrote, "The story is sad and sincerely told, but it is too removed from life to carry the full measure of pain." So what would your perspectives be on this comment be? So that life, okay, so this is sad and sincerely told, but it's too removed from life to carry the full measure of pain.
I have to say that when I watched the movie and it ended, I kind of expected it to go all the way down to kind of like the very harsh phases of Alzheimer's disease, which it didn't. We only went through like the transitional and that process of her realizing it's going fast and she's getting it young and stuff like that, which certainly does play it in a, let's say, more friendly manner. And I would say that there was a lot of pain. I mean, the fact that she's considering to kill herself was already quite shocking, and this is something that we can also comment, because to me that was like, would I do the same? And then I was like, no, that's the past me wanting to do that. No, I have to embrace here the physical body, breathing, and up to the point where my body says, okay, it's time to go. And not to say, because I'm no longer Marlene and all my achievements or all my personality is gone, or I don't know who I am, I have to then see no point in life. And this is something very important as well, when we believe that, oh, we are worthless because we no longer have this or that. We are alive as long as we are breathing. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, the point of honoring life no matter what, and that is something that, yeah, it's. And we were talking earlier about that as well, how in terms of that, actually, just to clarify, in the movie, well, while she was in the beginning, in the first stages of the disease, she recorded her video talking to her future self and saying, okay, now you probably can't remember certain things, so just go to this draw, take these pills, and that was basically, she was preparing her own death. So eventually, she would get into a state, and then she would watch the movie, and that would be the end. So she was preparing her way to prevent her own self-destruction by killing herself, so committing suicide. And then, well, I'm going to spoil the movie because if you haven't watched, but then in the end she forgets what she was going to do, and so she doesn't follow the plan. So basically, which is something that probably when she recorded the video initially, she didn't consider the point that she would potentially not be able to follow the plan, the instructions, because of the disease. So it's funny that, well, it's not funny, but it's interesting to see that we think of death as an escape to the pain, and that was her way of coping with that. But Marlene, as you were saying, in looking at life and embracing life in all shapes and sizes and like manifestations, then as you said, it will be a gift to embrace that and what she could do with that. And for example, the way she supported her daughter, well, one of the daughters, so the oldest daughter, she probably never actually recognized how her mother could assist her as well, but it's her presence. She could tell so many things by just being there. by not participating in these rules that society imposes. And just one thing that I wanted to add was, I was actually, while you guys were talking about your experience, I did have someone, not an immediate family, but someone that I met that did suffer from Alzheimer's. And I remember that before the disease, she was really mad. It's like she was mean. Sorry, not mad. She was mean to us. Like, she was not, like, she was really, like, she didn't care much, and she was really arrogant. But then, after she had the disease, I remember to meet her, perhaps like one of the last times I was with her, and she was super nice. Like, she was like a child talking to me, and I had a long conversation with her for the first time. So it was really interesting to see that the disease, all right, affected lots of her personalities and like things that were supportive, but at the same time, I could have a conversation with someone that before I had never had. So that is like where the pain can be transformed into something that can be constructive to people's lives. So, ladies, what do you have to say about this? Or any other things? Because we're now like reaching the end of the Hangout, so any comments?
I'd just like to ask Kathy to maybe share her perspective on that comment herself so that we can add it to this Hangout. It would be cool.
Sure.
I have nothing else to say. You guys have said really cool points so far.
Cool. So let's give a few more minutes while Kathy perhaps can reply to us. One thing that I noticed was also the vulnerability of knowledge and information, and how we define ourselves as everything that we gather. We want to be walking encyclopedias and wanting to know lots of different things just to play this ego and our intellectual. But in the end of the day, what do you have to say about this, and what are, I mean, the principles that you would say that we should definitely stand by, and that no matter what disease, that will always be here for us?
Well, I'd say that it's very specific that she was an academic, and she was a person that had worked in her knowledge and information accumulation for a long time, and everything that she did, including her ability to earn money, was defined upon that. And how she held on to having this, being able to give these lectures, proves to what extent we fear, obviously, losing that aspect of ourselves. And because there is no awareness, or it is not promoted in this world to embrace the simplicity of who we are as physical beings and breathing and being in the moment, but we mostly place value on people according to the degrees that they have, the amount of money that they make, and the trajectory that they have, the books that they've written. You know, all of these things that in the end it is something that we build, yes, to work and function in the system, but one has to be ready to this kind of eventualities wherein if Alzheimer hits you, then you make sure that you have not defined the entirety of who you are based on that accumulation of knowledge and information as me the linguist, or me the doctor, or me the professional in this or that, and so that everyone can be ready to embrace such kind of simplicity of living, which is living in the moment, really, and being willing to also, as people that walk with people with Alzheimer's, to embrace that as well, and to not be a burden to them. Because, for example, my father, with this woman that I was explaining with, he got very sad because she would no longer recognize him and the friendship upon the years, and my father was like very down, and I was like, you have to realize that this is the new her. Let go of who she was for you and embrace her in that moment, and rather get your guitar out and play music with her and enjoy in the moment. So they did that, and the moment that changed from them being kind of sad and not being able to understand each other to just playing music and having a good time. With these people, I would recommend that is a way to approach them, and also to be able to listen and support them, and not just also rehash the old for the sake of, hey, do you remember this and that? And because sometimes they don't remember, and they go like, I don't remember, and it becomes a problem to them. So just be willing to listen to what they come up with, work with that, and at the same time create a new input as to a physical activity is the most supportive, I'd say.
Great. Thanks for sharing those tips.
Yeah, find it cool what Marlene said before, also where she talked about how she supported that woman with self-forgiveness in that moment. And I think that's probably the best thing we can do is in that moment we just support in that moment whatever's needed. You know, we don't relish in the past, but we just simply do what we see best.
Cool. And Kathy, she replied to us. So her perspective is that pain is defined differently when felt within the mind versus the physical. So for Kathy, it made sense that most of us cannot fathom what suffering and pain really is. And this is why it's so important to learn how and why our mind is and how it is, and how to learn to direct who we are as it. Yep.
Fully agree with that, Kathy, and I definitely suggest more people that are knowing people with this disease or any other mental issue to really get down to understand how the mind operates, because it really simplifies the way that you can deal with this kind of situations with people like that, or with yourself having any sort of imbalance or even a mild to very heavyweight depression. All of these things are able to be walked through and embraced with the detrimental aspects that come with it, even irreversible, such as Alzheimer's in this case, so that we learn to support each other. Because something that this woman told me, people need people. And she said that this thing that one of her doctors told her was like an uplift moment for her to realize, I might not remember who I am, but I can support myself and others and make others enjoy the moment with me. We need each other, so why not learning how to best support each other?
Cool. Okay, so just the last comment was sent from Andrea. And Andrea also, so to add to what people with Alzheimer goes through, and then she says that a lot of suppressed things come up with someone who has the disease. So yeah, understanding how our mind works and where our suppressed thoughts come up and why they come up and how to address them, and to not take those thoughts personally and to just deal with them as they come, and ideally without having the disease, so you can actually prevent yourself from having to deal with all those memories later on and accumulate them within you. And just to finalize also, and this Hangout is also the purpose of that, is to bring us back to the basics. And I will add lots of links on our description of the links, so of this Hangout, so you can check out the various sources that we're mentioning during this Hangout. And just before we conclude, ladies, do you have anything to add to this Hangout?
Just for people to check out the resources and links that Joanna is going to add, because I definitely recommend listening to the EQAFE recording on Alzheimer's. It definitely gave me perspective on how such a disease manifests, and I think it's very important for people who have family members who have Alzheimer's to listen to that.
All right. Marlene?
Yeah, I would like to only comment on what Andrea brought up, which is just basics of the tools for ourselves to walk through that moment of either one, having reactions to the person that is having Alzheimer's, or walk with them in the moment, as I shared practically, when the person is coming up with a lot of suppressions, because I could see that, and they can get very energetic and very angry, and I was like, okay, breathe, let's breathe. Let's walk through it and understand it. And it did take a long time. I mean, I'm talking about maybe 1 hour, 2 hours of talking with her. But to get to that point of, hey, this was actually a good talk and thank you, that's the moment that you can have with a person to actually walk through these suppressions with the tools that we learn also in Desteni, because they're really invaluable in that regard. So that's my perspective.
Great. All right, and I share what Kathy just said. It was a great Hangout, and I really appreciate everyone's participation. And I also remind everyone who is watching that you can subscribe our channel, so please do subscribe our channel, because we have various Hangouts during the week. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in all of them. All right, so ladies, thank you very much and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.